House Bill 66, please.
House Bill 66 by Representative Davis and Representative Knight to amend Title 48 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia annotated relating to revenue and taxation so as to abolish the state income tax.
Chair recognizes Representative Davis to present his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I bring forth House Bill 66, which it will abolish all Georgia personal income taxes as well as all corporate income taxes and replace it with a sales tax base by doubling the amount of the state sales tax from 4% to 8%. Now, the bill will not change any of the current exemptions placed on sales tax. If you're paying tax on it now, you will be paying tax on it after this bill. Not affecting this legislation is I did not double the sales tax on motor fuel, leaving it at the standard 4%. I believe this bill promotes less government and more personal responsibility by reducing the burden of government to enforce the overly complicated tax system that we currently use. The government reduction would be substantial by eliminating the need for printing of forms, handling, postage, as well as the expense from personnel for just tax compliance and enforcement measures. Not to mention the millions of dollars that the everyday citizens they'll save in software and professional help that they need to provide us with the forms that we are asking for. I think there's a movement not only in Georgia but around this nation that we move away from a income-based taxation and move to a consumption-based. And I really believe that we should embrace this, and I'm be willing to take any kind of questions on it. But one more thing I wanted to say was, if this bill was enacted, it would give a 6% raise across the board to all tax-paying citizens of Georgia, and also reintroduce $8.9 billion into the Georgia economy. And I think that's a substantial point doing with this legislation. But I'll be happy to take any questions.
Questions for the author, Representative Flood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You threw out some numbers that I wanted to just make sure I understood. You said this bill would allow for a 6% increase in personal income by Georgia citizens?
Yes, sir. By eliminating the 6% income, the 6% rate on income tax now that Georgia currently.
But that's offset by an additional 4% increase in sales tax.
Yes, sir.
So how is that a 6% increase if you take it away from one hand and put it back with the other?
They will have the choice on a sales tax-based taxation method. You will have the choice of purchasing or making purchases that would incur that taxation. So, but the raise will come in their paycheck. They will get all of their paycheck without any state income taxes based on it. That's where the 6% raise comes from.
Yeah, semantics. I would imagine it's been. And then you talked about a 6% increase. The previous bill had or two bills before had a provision that would allow for lower income people to gain more of their retain more of their income. You also mentioned that people in the low income bracket typically spend nearly 100% of their income on consumption items because they're negative savers. They're spending nearly 100% or more of their income on purchases and expenditures. Does that also mean that they would be getting a 6% increase if you're doubling their sales tax?
Well, I listened to that presentation. I also heard that 40% of it was the only amount that was actually being charged as sales tax because 60% of it was exempt from the sales tax. So not changing any of the exemptions, you're really, yes, they would have some measures on where they would have to pay tax in the back side of it. Obviously we still have needs of the state that we have to address, but at the same time, it's a fair tax, and it's simple and transparent to everyone that uses it.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Williams.
Representative Davis, on page 9, you're talking about local city and county taxes not exceed 16%. What's going to happen? What effect is this going to have on SPLOST and local option sales taxes? Are they going to be eliminated, or can they continue to enact SPLOST?
Well, they can continue with SPLOST. The raising that amount, there was a threshold in the code section, and that's one of the reasons the bill is so large, is there's thresholds for such as hotel motel tax as well as SPLOST, and individual counties charge different rates. And this just capped it at, we added the 4% onto what was already there. So if it says 16%, it used to be 12, and we just raised it up to accommodate the 4% that we're adding.
Chair recognizes Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the gentleman, with the bill, you mentioned that it would, of course, take the 6% or up to 6% off the income, and that would be recapped in sales tax. This summer, 2 study committees went around the state, and Chairman O'Neill's Tax Reform Study Committee and Chairman Lewis, Business Incentives Tax Study Committee. And one of the things we heard from our businesses was that we were at a disadvantageous position in Georgia relative to our border states. And in fact, our border businesses were losing sales out of state, whereby Georgians could go across the state line and pay less sales tax on big-ticket items. How would the gentleman address the fact that if we double our sales tax, double the state portion of that, in some areas taking that up to 11%, and they're only paying 5 or 6% in South Carolina or Florida or Tennessee, how would the gentleman address those large ticket purchases moving out of state and taking their jobs and business with them?
Well, it depends on what the large purchases are. Obviously, we've got if they do a large purchase on a car, it's already addressed in the law. They still have to pay the Georgia sales tax rather on that already. Now, if you're talking about refrigerators or appliances or something like that, it's something that we need to. I apologize. That's something that we need to address and consider. However, there's other fair taxation modes right now in other border states. And some of the authors, co-signers on there are border county members. So there's issues that we need to look at with that and see how we can address it. But in general, the bill also eliminates corporate income tax. So it could be an enticement to bring more corporations into Georgia and develop it on another angle. So there's several different things going on there, but that's a tough issue, and that's something that we have to look at and address. And if there's some way we can overcome that, then we can do such.
Thank you. Number 17, who's it? Representative Peak.
Question for you. Would the sales tax change to where it would be charged on services in the state, for instance, rents that you pay, or water fees, or CPA fees?
No, and I didn't get into the exemptions or change any of the services at all. I left it exactly the way it was. Every exemption you have now is every exemption that's going to be on this bill. I did not address not one exemption other than the motor fuel that is really not applicable with the income tax, but I didn't address the motor fuel. That's the only one.
Sims?
Representative Davis, again, I asked the same question that I asked before. When you have a sales tax drawdown like they had in Tennessee, and they don't have an income tax up there, and I remember right, Mr. Chairman, I think they were in the red for about 3 years, weren't they? Or maybe 4 years. What do you do when you have when the sales tax goes down, and you fluctuate with your sales tax? What do you do to make up the income? Where are we going to make it up?
Well, and that's one of the reasons that the state keeps a reserve. And yes, it fluctuates. And I heard your comments earlier, and I knew that was coming when I got up here. So, there's a lot to this bill and a lot of different ways we can look at it. But it's going to be an economic development driver, and I think it will increase the sales tax. And it's been nationally done. I mean, nationally, whenever you cut taxes, you actually increase the amount of tax collections. So, and that's on every level. So, that I don't know how I can answer that question other than you prepare for ups and downs in state. We do that now.
Let me also just state the committee, the purpose of this exercise in first readers is to give the author an opportunity to know what to prepare for in subcommittee and so forth. So we don't feel that you're just being attacked from every flank, but hopefully you'll use this as areas that you need to have a good, clear understanding of when you do present to the subcommittee back to the full committee for full debate. I don't want to limit the debate here other than we're under some time restraints, so I'm going to take two more questions, and then we'll assign this one, and I'm sure it's going to be deliberated long and hard in subcommittee before it's over with. Who's at 23? Representative Lewis.
Representative Davis, thank you for presenting that. Let me just say I appreciate your motivation and your concept here. I applaud you for bringing this forward. Just one question. I haven't read the bill and hadn't had a chance to go through it, but when you shift this burden to sales tax, I don't know if it's in the bill or if it's your intent that sales tax perhaps be redefined to where it's levied at the retail level only, where in some instances around the state we impose a sales and use tax on items that are not at a retail level. They may be arguably more at a wholesale level. Does your bill address that, or was any thought given to that approach?
No, sir, it was not. And it's not addressed in the bill at all.
Thank you.
Actually, I'll take two more since both these lights are on. Who's at 29? Representative Tumlin.
Representative Davis, I was on page 1, 4871, you say absolutely no taxes collected after 1108. How would that apply to people, say, that were non-filed for 2004 through 2007, or carry forward from their income tax? Would you just completely forgive all previous returns not found under this way this is written?
Well, I'm not looking at that verbiage right now, but the intent was not to, well, maybe we used the wrong word at that very moment, but the point is not to charge any additional taxes after which we would still be able to collect past debt that's owed to the state. At least that's the intention that I had with the legislation.
Representative Jameson, is that right? Number 28?
Yes. Representative Davis, in compiling the fiscal note, do you know if they took into consideration that currently your state income tax, if you itemize your tax return, is a deduction? So you're actually saving a percentage of that state income tax by deducting it on the federal and the state tax return. Do you know if that was taken into consideration in developing the fiscal note?
I don't know that answer, but I do know that there's several issues addressed with the fiscal note that I would like to dispute when we get into full debate on it. But they didn't take a lot of things into consideration when they prepared the fiscal note.
Representative Davis, we thank you and laud your courage, and look forward to a very spirited debate on some very provocative legislation you brought forward. A good job, and thank you for appearing before the committee.